we didn't know how to respond to such a significant issue in our environment where we're trying, remember, to get people better. And, I think it's important to understand those challenges along with COVID have just created, a very difficult scenario.
Maybe you can share with us your thoughts, Christine, being in the industry, on how you've seen things change in terms of hospital-acquired infections or how infection prevention is handled prior to COVID versus now with the greater awareness around COVID. Have you seen any changes you'd like to share with our audience?
So I think we're starting to create a portfolio of products that we can attack these issues within these facilities. We have certain bedding and linens that we're looking at now. We're looking at copper. And when I say copper, copper has the ability to have antimicrobial functions. We're looking at UV significantly. We're looking at hand washing tracking systems. All of those things would have been great to have had in place prior to COVID, because it probably would have helped control. I mean, we didn't know how to respond to such a significant issue in our environment where we're trying, remember, to get people better. And I think it's important to understand those challenges along with COVID have just created a very difficult scenario. And so as we move forward, we're trying to find what you said, tools. I call it a toolkit. What's in your toolkit? What are you using to move forward in this scenario? And what are we going to implement and standardize to address our population of sick people within hospitals and long-term care?
Well, yes. So we need to come up with standards, and we need to be able to evaluate the innovation that's happening and kind of filter out what's effective and what isn't, and develop standards around that. I'm interested in some of the technology you mentioned. You talked about copper. Copper has been validated to have antimicrobial properties. Now, you mentioned the bed sheets. I know that in a hospital setting, and a lot of our viewers might not be aware of this, but if the patient before you had C. diff, you're 85% more likely to contract C. diff. I bring this up because you mentioned the bed sheets and you mentioned copper. Are these copper sheets you're looking at, or what are you seeing that can address the inpatient room cross-contamination infection problem?
So we're looking at certain pillows, certain linens. Then we're also looking at the EVS checklist when they move out. When you change a room, we're looking at how do we address, how are we sanitizing that room, which gets into the UV equipment, which is the autonomous robots that we represent. So you put the bedding with the autonomous robot, and then we're looking at addressing your staff, right? Are your staff doing the things they should be doing that are just, almost common sense? Hand washing, tracking. The tracking then gives reporting and data, which can then tie to your leapfrog scores.